Y'all, it's your boy Anik Heath coming at you with the Church of Contain. Only 3 minutes late this week. Let us miracles are possible. They happen. Oh, my daughter is screaming. All right, she's done yelling about her diaper change. So, how's everybody doing this week? Uh, let's see. Should I go back and customize that? Maybe. Will I? Definitely not. Why? It takes a lot of time. And it kind of won't be worth it. But hope everybody's been doing well. Let's see, we left off with Deku getting his chain snatched in front of everybody. Left off with it being a battle for the ages. We got Devontae Kent and Smoke That Fire. Uncle Smokey. Let me go ahead and get this posted in the Discord so we can get the stream underway. Because I know, well, let's see it. Thomas beat me to it. Let's switch. Church. Thomas did not beat me to it. Wait, maybe he did. Nope. There we go. It's usually Thomas if somebody's going to beat me to it. Now, I know this chapter came out for the scan readers, what, a week ago, 2 weeks ago? Scans come out early. But I don't believe in living by the scans. Yo ho ho. Oh boy. All right, Cameron Bailey, S. Little J. Michael Holmes, 704. Tiger Blaster Denzel. All right. Yes, do like the stream. Remember, only you can stop me from getting put into the shadow realm by the algorithm. And I do mean that literally. Only you guys can do that. There's no petition or anything like that. It's just either you guys interact and put engagements in the video, or it doesn't happen. So, all right. But even though I'm having allergy attacks in the middle of winter, and thus I probably sound more congested than usual. Let's get started on the chapter because I want to read it. Let's see. Chapter. All right, cool. And we're back next week. Oh, that was this is an intense opening page. Chapter opens and it's just Deku about to just about to swing off. Inside my body, focusing on defense left me immobilized. So in the meantime, I used the fifth black whip to flex and extend my muscles manually. So this is another depth for me because back when the whole Deku's arm didn't get destroyed the discourse happened after the PLW, the doctor said you used black whip to coat your like inside and out. And I said this probably means that he was infusing black whip with his actual musculature. And people were like, "Oh, what does that mean?" Blah, 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 blah. Boom, there, he did it. He can do it. Under the surface level, he can wrap black whip around his muscle tendons, pushing them to the limits to build up power for the third's Fajin, allowing me to unleash blast of air. We're bringing back the Delaware Smash. Let's go. Gotta say, that's peak performance, Midoriya. He predicted the path and range of my decay and used that wind blast to gouge out the land and blow it away. By removing a medium for my power to travel through, he can delay the advance of my destructive force. Still, it's only a stopgap measure. I'll apply my personal touch as many times as it takes. The dust cloud isn't dispersing. And then we see Black Whip tendrils popping up as Shigaraki's trying to hop into action and get at him. Sure, I get it. I applied the second's gear shift in low gear to the sixth smoke screen, holding the cloud in place. Man, we getting into some top tier quirk application here. This man is slowing the speed of smoke, caused the force dangerousness to set off a constant alarm in his head. Then unleashing the fist black whip while Shigaraki's vision is obscured. And now, in the meantime, after all, I know the risk of relying too heavily on danger sense. Going to such lengths to store up power, but ninth, Shigaraki's search quirk will lead him right to you. Of course, it's N freaking out, not even considering the possibility that it's a bait. I see all, remember? Your location and weaknesses. I know everything about anyone I lay eyes on, up to 100 people at a time. Can't catch your breath, huh? The gear shift's time is up, and here comes the recoil. And those charged up attacks, not meant for willy nilly rapid fire either. I can tell you're reinforcing your muscles and tendons from the inside. It's clear enough that those black coils show right through your skin. And if you smack me head on with one of those moves, I might not manage to put myself together. But life's tough when you've got so much you want to protect, right, Midoriya? Like I told you, I'm not giving up on that crying boy. We see he's throwing a St. Louis Smash Air Force. People interpret the world around them through such narrow, limited windows. What's going on now? Can't see a thing. They're too far from the camera. When the world throws the inexplicable at them, they concoct rationales to put themselves at ease. Now you're cramming me into your narrowed worldview like a square peg into a round hole. You see it all, yeah? In the same way I can see your ghost buddies, one for all gives you a peek inside me. That's how you kept track on me, even in the smoke. Well, take a closer look. I overcame and buried that crying kid a while back. It's my worldview that's taken over. The boy's gone. Only I'm left. Me, Tomura Shigaraki, and I'm doing just peachy. And then we see Nana. I want to save that little boy. Give it up. Oof. There are some people out there who can't be saved, Izuku. In the face of the ideals you carry as a hero, he presents an insurmountable challenge, an impenetrable wall you don't need to overcome. Your only option is to annihilate him in a single blow, leaving nothing behind except that grin and bared Izuku. Charge up for a strike even mightier than before. No, I have to ask why he can't let go of that sad, lonely past of his. All he did was put a lid on it. You ignored those you couldn't protect and swept that pain under the rug. So until that lid shatters to pieces, I won't stop smashing it away. Oh boy, this is not a Deku, my boy. It's a good thing you're 16, because this is not the strategy. What up, Joseph Shiola, Trippy Manga, and Denzel? And you know what's crazy is that we were talking about that last week, where I was like, or not last week, but like 2 weeks ago, I think. And I was like, ultimately though, if you explode him, he's probably not gonna actually get back together. And we know that the way he dodged Bakugo's howitzer and that permanent damage, that like if he had pulled a cell during the cell side with the final flash, and they had stood there and let that blast, like we would have seen him blast off a whole chunk. So we got to see what we can do here. Man, this is why I was so opposed. The desire to save one's arch enemy is delusional madness, a madness that disrupts our destined path. It's arrogant thinking born of a naive, peace addled existence, but having observed him from within, I know the truth that this boy clings to one driving notion that anyone, whether the most vile among us or even the quirkless, that inside each one of us beats an innately human heart. I too want to believe. Hold on. We see. Call me a fan of saccharine sentiment, but now you have to do exactly as I say. I'm betting everything on you, Ninth. The time has come to part ways with one for all. What? Oh, hold up. Let me get the boys in here. Let me get the crew. Cause hold on. No, where's the hold up. This is no, it's not what I'm after. There we go. All right, I gotta talk to some people here because I respect the mindset that we're seeing here because One for All has kind of moved into complete disaster territory as far as its power level goes. Um, like it's just it's oh, there we go. Okay. Whereas with what's at stake here, the end of all for one, there's just like this mission that some of these people have been locked up for 100 years for. And while shows like Avatar, those other ones have these cycles and stuff, it is kind of important that if the mission of One for All ends, I don't know if I want to be getting out of bed every day after that just to keep fighting randos. But what I do know is that if I'm in Shigaraki's position and I know I can get splattered, I'm probably not baiting people too hard. I think that's the most one of the most fascinating parts about how this has been handled. Shigaraki is pretty consistently like trying to like bait Deku into splattering him. Like he's not clinging to his life necessarily. And I think part of it is also just his willingness to destroy makes it where if he's in conflict with someone else, um, he wants them to be more than willing to put their life on the line as well, or more accurately, be willing to kill him because there's no fun in it if they're not willing to murk him. Also, a small detail I like about this is the Delaware Smash progression. Uh, because Delaware Smash has always been one of my favorite moves, just because the idea of just blasting people with the flick of your fingers is just kind of humorous. So we get the on the test and the man when they raid UA, and then we're getting the flashback to the and him disrupting the water, him using the bullets of Air Force, and we get all those flashbacks just a sequence to say like, hey, this is how strong Delaware Smash is now. It now gouges stone, cuts through the earth. Deku can slice through stones with the flick of his finger. And that's some real meaningful progress. And then, of course, it's the fact that there's the prediction aspect and all this other stuff. And the way Deku utilizes quirks, what I honestly thought he was going to do was, while Shigaraki was like, I can, predict everything, blah, blah, blah. I thought he would kind of pull closer and go ahead and throw at least a big one through. But at the same time, we've seen Deku cut off his fingers with a karate chop. And in this chapter, we see that reinforced smash actually just cut off Shigaraki's arm. Um, so if Shigaraki, when Shigaraki says, hey, yeah, if I take a direct blow from that, it's probably donezo. I don't think that's exaggeration, especially depending on where that blow lands. Because the main thing that kept Bigaraki, as we'll call it, alive was that he was coated in other arms, limbs, and all kinds of other stuff protecting his core body. But that was Bigaraki. This is regular Rocky, if you will. If he eats a blow to the chest, that's just it. That's his core exploding. What up, Joseph?
Hey, how's it going? I was waiting for a chance to jump in. So, how you doing?
I'm all right.
Yeah, got a little cold?
It's allergies.
Ah, all right. So, yeah.
They're
So
year round.
yeah. Uh, so like I actually saw a theory on Twitter that I don't know if I fully agreed with, but I like the name that they came up with. The
Okay.
theory was that New Order and One for All would merge to create a whole new quirk, which the person who came up with it called United We Stand.
Let's see. So my curiosity in this is that are people assuming that New Order is coming because of the
The Star
oh,
Hands.
I think it's just that I'm gonna have to go as creepy as it sounds, I'm gonna have to go look at Star's hands and make sure that's actually her hand just because that's so weird to me. Like I mean Volka's been saying it for a while, so but it just seemed like not possible for a vestige to just hide inside of him without him having access to the quirk. I mean, it's not that it, but at the same time, we don't have enough knowledge on the vestige realm, so who knows?
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
again, that's why this is such an effective cliffhanger because it makes you want to know what's going on.
let's
Um,
see. Oh my goodness, the star fight was like 2 years ago, I guess.
yeah, it's it's weird how like this entire stretch of the story has seemed like so long ago, but yet like not that long at all. Like the star part, the Ayama part is just
Hmm. Yeah, because before over 60 chat, yeah, no, yeah, yeah, it's pretty far in the past. This is wild.
do you think this arc
Why?
has a chance to make it to 100 chapters?
Um, actually, I guess when do we consider the start of the arc? I guess is the real question.
I would say in volume 35 when they pulled the trap on All for One.
That's kind of where I look at it as like,
Because I think that chapter is even called The Final Battle Begins or something like that.
and I'm not opposed to people considering the Aoyama stuff as the real precursor to this arc or like the beginning of this arc.
Yeah.
Uh, trying to get a shot of Star's hand up close, and shockingly,
Because
almost every
people are saying
one
that
has
that's
blur
like her
lines.
gauntlet.
She did wear a similar gauntlet.
Good morning.
Good
Good
morning, Seth. How
morning.
are you?
Hiyo. Fine, thank you. Uh, kind of got plans coming up soon, so I can't stay for too long, but I just wanted to check in and say hi.
Hey, I appreciate that all the same. Uh, oh, but for the record, I'm not seeing any stars on her actual gauntlet, but because like at first I thought that was All Might's gauntlet, so I was just kind of looking at these star and stripe shots to see if I could find it. Uh,
Did All Might have stars on his gauntlet?
I think
Or I
so.
don't.
Here, hold on.
Yeah, you can see them around the wrist
There
first.
we go.
Well, yeah, if you look around her wrist, it should be there.
He doesn't have his headphones on, so he probably didn't hear
As you do.
you.
It's okay. It's like
Yeah.
first thing in the
So,
morning for me
so,
anyway, so.
so I was really curious. What was the line in the scans that you were unsure about?
Oh, right. I actually already posted that to Twitter real quick, but
Oh, okay. I didn't see it.
no, that's okay. Like literally first thing in the morning. So
Yeah.
no, the line was actually regarding the lid that Deku was supposed to be pounding away at. So
Yeah.
TCB scans gave a different impression of that
Yeah, like
line.
a rug, like literally under the rug and
Right,
gonna
right,
rip the
right.
rug
But that's
apart.
not right, but that's not the part that I was poking at.
Okay.
I think the rug thing was literally what Shigaraki, it was localized to that when it
Yeah.
was first said.
Hmm.
But the thing that happens in English, I think English localizers sort of underestimate how literal or far the Japanese will take an analogy. And so in this chapter, it was actually retranslated into lid. If you look at the flashback, which
Yeah.
yeah. So, anyways, but the lid or the rug is sort of neither here nor there. Just the lid makes the current chapter work better because yeah, you can smash a lid, but you can't
Right.
smash a rug. So the anyways, but that's more of a translation thing. For the officials, I meant for TCB scans, the impression of um to whom or to what lid Deku was referring to, because Shigaraki brings up the is the first to bring up the lid topic way back when,
Right.
about what society does to other people. Society just bottles it up and then packs it in,
Yeah.
puts it
Out of sight,
away.
out of mind.
Correct, correct. Deku is saying in the Japanese, at least I believe, that Shigaraki is also doing the same thing with Tenko and his past. And that makes a lot more sense in context as well, because there's no societal problem Deku can fix right now that would save Tenko, if that makes sense. So to me, I think Viz is right here in pointing out that Shigaraki is bottling his own things, his own issues up, personal issues, that Deku has to break through and reach past. It also makes, and that is what would actually save Tenko right now. Because like making big promises about perhaps violently um, uh, addressing societal issues, I think that's a bridge too far from TCB. That said, I understand the Japanese is pretty vague. Like it doesn't address the subject directly. So you really only have the context of the lines to go with to say what Deku is referring to. But yeah, to me, I think I'm just glad that Viz at least validated my reading of it. Um, I think it's fair though to say there are you could Deku could be referring to multiple things. Like he
Right.
could be seeing exactly what Shigaraki's saying about such a problem, and I'm sure he is.
Yeah.
Just in terms of like actually the heat of this current moment, he's definitely trying to say, no, I will save that crying child. Like that is his focus right now, as it should be, I think.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, so that's what I was getting at there.
All right.
Really strong dialogue. I love that, and Horikoshi's art is amazing as
Yeah.
always. Hang on, Iki, are you talking?
Oh
Or
no, I had to mute because my daughter was about to start yelling, and then
um,
it's always a game of
yeah.
muting on. But I
Mhm.
did find the. It looks like those stars were for some of the shots added in the volume, but didn't make it into the chapter, the weekly release. So that's what that was. Because when I was looking at it online, I wasn't seeing much of it in the actual released volumes. And um, I did find it in the actual volume though.
Oh, I didn't realize it was a volume edition. Okay. But yeah, this chapter has a lot of things in it that are just, whoa, that's he's referencing that kind of just like a whole bunch of little bombshells. Let me think. Well, first off, the action. I was really excited to see Deku do the Air Force thing. That reminded me of All Might from Bakugo and Deku versus All Might way back when, where All Might just smashes and the Air Force reaches all the way over to them. The Black Whip Deku using Black Whip on his muscles itself is insane. And of course, the scarring will probably lead to a really cool character design. So Horikoshi's always on point with uh consequences and stuff like that.
Or he exclusively believes in tearing apart Deku and making sure that he has life lasting scars.
Exclusively.
Which I guess, since I know you're on a budget for time,
Yeah, I'd like to be out and there's some things I need to do today that just unfortunately need more time than I want to give them, but still need to take it. So
hey, yeah, I know.
I'd rather
Um,
spend 3 hours talking manga, but alas.
I want to know, especially your thoughts, especially on that parting with the one for all.
Yeah, that's definitely the biggest of these several quote unquote controversies in this chapter. That's definitely the biggest one. So for me, that is it's both bait, but it's not. I don't trust Horikoshi 100% with any of his cliffhangers lately. Um, but this is too heavy a topic to just, what's the word? Not mean anything, I guess, right? So like, so Horikoshi is definitely going to play with what powers Deku does or doesn't keep. Personally, I do want him to keep at least super strength, but narratively, I also think he needs to like those vestiges that live inside him, they represent the past conflict. And I'm not sure there's a place for the vestiges in the future. You know what I mean? So I could see something has to happen that definitively puts things to rest for this arc or for the entire for MHA in general. So whether or not that results in Deku losing his powers, thematically it still works because power is not what makes a hero as far as MHA is concerned. But in terms of like personal investment into characters, like
Mhm.
it would still be tough to see Deku no longer be able to physically uh help people in the way that he is driven to. Like he will jump into traffic with powers or without powers to help someone. So like as a matter of concern, I I do want Deku to retain something, but um quite frankly, it's up in the air. It really is. And especially if there is no sequel series planned for MHA, like um Yeah, that's an option on the table, and that's kind of scary. And it's stuff like this that amuses me when people say that MHA doesn't have stakes, because it very much does. Like, we're talking about whether or not Shigaraki lives or dies, whether or not Deku keeps his powers. Like, those are all stakes. And so I'm amused that that discussion happened to come up just before this fight really got serious. Um,
So
but I digress.
something about the Deku situation that I find interesting about this chapter too is that people have said we don't get Deku's introspection. And one of the important things that we like, people have kind of said is like, well, Deku hasn't been like outside of Deku Black, where he was supposed to be clouded, disillusioned, and just kind of throwing himself to the wind, which in of itself is a trauma response. So I really hate when people say we're not getting how Deku feels during that arc, because how he feels is desperate. It's
I
very
think
obvious. He
it's
feels desperate and like a failure. But I also realize that many people only recognize they have various like check boxes for what they consider to be trauma responses and the like. So watching somebody throw themselves into work that usually works might not come off the same as intended, but it's still annoying to have something made as a statement of fact when it's not a fact. But with what was said about Shigaraki and the emphasis on Bakugo, we can clearly see that, and this is something that I think most of us either knew or suspected, which is that as bad as Bakugo was, like as far as how he treated people, that Deku, by the very nature of having been quirkless, saw himself as of equal or lower value to Bakugo anyway. So in a sense, he felt like he deserved the treatment he received. And that's what's gonna make or break the one, like if he loses one for all and is still seen as the greatest hero the world has ever had, that can push him past that misunderstanding. But that's such a heavy cost, right? Like not being able to do your fulfill your dreams at all and only really getting to see yourself for the value you present as a human being post prime is, I guess, fitting because it's something that it's a path that All Might walked, but he'd actually have a chance to have a proper life after getting sucked into the cycle of one for all. So
Yeah,
it's
I
the opportunity for freedom, but
there's a lot to really consider here because like I mean the topics come up a lot of times over the years. How is he going to end this series? And I would consider the quirkless ending possibility for him more had we not gotten a very little thing bef almost immediately before Bakugo got killed. And that was Endeavor's little kind of imagine spot flash forward of the future.
Yep, I want to believe in that very much.
Yeah. So what you see in that is not only Bakugo alive and well, and he did this right before his death to like kind of implicitly tell people is like, don't worry, it's gonna be okay. You also see Deku in full costume now. So I don't think you can put that page in and and prove that one part of it was true with Bakugo, and then say that the other part of it was not true with Deku, because then I think that that's very cheap. I would consider it more if we hadn't gotten that, but I think he's effectively if he wants to close things out in a way that brings everything home, I don't think he can go the quirkless ending anymore. So I'm of the belief I think that whatever happens, maybe he goes quirkless for a little while. And it kind of seems like we might be heading towards that. But Kudo also says that he's a fan of that saccharine sentimentality before he says you have to part way. It's time to part ways with one for all. And I think what that means is not necessarily Deku. I think he's talking about himself and the Vestiges. It's time for them to go.
Uh,
So,
mm,
because, and here's the other thing, and I have been pushing this for almost 2 years now, and people called me crazy. And I kept pushing it, despite people saying it was dumb, despite people saying that could never happen. We see Star this chapter, or at least her arm. And we were told, oh, well, she's destroyed. There's no way back for her. It's like, dude, New Order is the one quirk that can overcome those circumstances. So you gotta think that she could still be around. Now, a lot of this vestige stuff is very vague on purpose because like a lot of it is kind of more spiritual, not really held down by any hard and fast rules. Like even the whole plan with Shigaraki on AFO's part was like, you need to have a stronger willpower than the vestiges. It's like, do you understand how finicky that actually is? Like it's not something like even quirks in general. It's not even like a harder, more defined part of the power system. It's literally just if you get so angry that you can overwhelm the rest of them, you'll get that. Like that's kind of flighty when you really think about it.
That's
But
not a strict rule. It's pretty. You base it on the determination of the person, and then you say, um, if you try to power scale it, your brain explodes. So yeah,
yeah, it's like it's basically it's one of those things where it's basically whatever the author wants to write, which is why, POW still had quite a bit left to go. So couldn't obviously Shiggy couldn't take it there, otherwise we wouldn't have anything in final act and All for One would have won. But anyways. Um uh I think we also have to recognize Deku's angst about One for All is he doesn't really see it as his. And there's all this talk about you have to complete One for All, you have to do all this. A lot of these things being put on him, even if, the people doing it were just trying to help him. Like, I mean, this was a whole thing during the Dark Hero arc where Bakugo, who's known him longest, who knows exactly how he operates, he's like, no, that's not a good thing. Don't leave him to his own devices. He's gonna careen off and do something stupid, which is exactly what he was doing. And if he had kept doing that, he would have been dead. They'd all be dead. As he would not have faced Shigaraki or Ulf One at a point, even if he was fully recovered, he would have just barreled on ahead and tried to stop them ASAP because he wasn't thinking about his own well-being to the point that, no, we need you at your strongest. Like, yes, there's the whole emotional aspect of it, like he doesn't value himself. He was literally not thinking. He was just barreling on ahead. He was like, if I just grind and grind and grind, I can stop this for everybody. But that was a lot of his tunnel vision activating, and he was very delirious from not having enough sleep. Um, he was eating like crap, just like a nutrient bar or something once a day. Um, but anyway, I think there are a lot of ways this can go, but this long rambling aside, I think he has to retain some form of the quirk. However that goes, I'm not sure, but like we need to see what complete One for All is going to look like. Like what is One for All in its completed form going to be? I think that's really the lingering question behind this, beyond the whole will Deku save Tenko or not?
and I do think that that's a question that probably. Oh, Mr. Andrew came through with the super chat. Let me address that before I say anything else. I want to hope that somehow Deku would get OFA back in the series, but like I don't see Shiggy giving AFO back, so maybe Heroes Rising Quirk return. So one of the things that I saw somebody ask once was, what's behind the door? Like, why is the door still there? Is it just And on one hand, it like that door in that room is just kind of the prison that the first user was in. Like I think we all agree that that's what that room is supposed to be.
Yeah.
But that does also it does kind of beg the question, like, can you actually open that door? Does it do anything of significance? Because if we're having these vestige conversations and people can kind of interact with each other in that realm, and I still love the fact that we got confirmation that Shigaraki can see the Force Ghost when they pop up to talk to him, then it does make you wonder, has One for All been connected to the information vestige highway this entire time? And just by lack of exploration, has that led to them not getting to tap into? Because from that perspective, One for All could then turn into just a quirk network highway. That's really cracked. And I'm guessing the limit would be 9 quirks hanging out in the room at a time. But that's kind of what I'm starting to wonder, is if there's going to be, because as somebody mentioned that Heroes Rising quirks choosing to go back, the sentience of quirks and the users that are bound to them is clearly an idea that Horikoshi has wanted to play with. And even the New Order being able to shit talk Shigaraki as, or All for One really, as Cassie allegedly fades away, and then we see somehow her hand this chapter. Uh, it does kind of suggest that you can create and alter certain like rules and stuff, which makes me wonder if Wildcat, like New Order, was rebelling, if just because in the vestige realm an attempt was made on her part to say, um, New Order will not work for this person, or New Order will only work for the user of One for All, in line with what your theory is.
Yeah. I mean, look, you gotta understand when you introduce a power like New Order, and then you put it in proximity with a quirk that we know boosts quirks, you gotta be prepared for some wild shit. And it's like, look, I don't necessarily think that he's gonna get New Order. We'll see. But I think you can't deny that she's going to have to be relevant to some degree. This is why I kept bringing up like the alternate the like All for One was speculating she added a last rule, but of course she faded away before uh and seemingly like put a stop to that. It's like, oh well, she didn't set a new rule. Well, this her hand appearing seems to imply that she did last second without either All for One or Shigaraki knowing. So like either or, it's just the nature of the quirk. It can basically do anything. Like that's the thing. So if
That's the
she
thing that's being
wants to give
irrelevant. Sorry.
if she wants to give Deku a last buff of some kind, and like maybe that undoes her other rule and she fades away. It's this is wild because like we've been getting to this point for years and years. And also you need to consider something else as well. Timing. This is happening very early into the final fight. We got like one chapter of Deku revving up, and then I mean, of course, they've been fighting all throughout in the background, but like you know what I mean.
Focused fight.
Yeah, the focus fight. This is literally like the second chapter of them that we get to see them duking it out. So from my perspective, like think of all the power-ups we've been getting for the students. Like Shoto had his phosphor move uh and he's gonna keep training that. He's gonna keep getting more powerful. Oh, Ochako is like she's pretty limited. She can only use her hands. But guess what, bitch? She can like project out little bubbles now, and they can They can lift people up. She can lift up the mass of an entire mountain now, maybe even more. And she wasn't and like she was losing blood at that point too, right? So it's like that's doubly impressive. Normally she gets nauseous. So after a few tons, I mean after several tons, she should have been conked out, but no, she kept going. So her limit is way, 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 way higher now. Bakugo. Bakugo's a perpetual fusion reactor now. He just fucking spins around, generates explosions, and if you try to hit him, guess what? He's just gonna blow back up in your face because he can coat his skin in sweat. So that's a pretty crazy power up, and he was able to withstand All for One's most powerful attack ever through using that. Deku's your MC. Now, what a lot of people do not understand, I think, about this specific type of battle shonen, it's always about escalation. You gotta keep upping the ante. So, from where I'm sitting, you kind of have to give Deku one last busted power up if you're gonna drive up the hype, if you're gonna drive up the sales. You're gonna be like, hey, look at this new form. Oh, Luffy's got Gear 5 in One Piece. Guess what? I'm gonna give Deku like his own Gear 5 or whatnot. And
The
also,
other thing,
yeah.
Deku was very cleanly above every single student.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yes, they made it a point to tell us Bakugo was keeping up with 30% one for all, which means that like the base one for all that Deku was using without, spiking, Bakugo was still keeping up with. And that's fine and dandy. That's cool. Great job, Bakugo. You're equal to like 30% of one for all's power. And if we keep it a stack, that automatically puts you at probably at least top 100 characters in the verse. Just even including people we don't know. That's a pretty crazy feat, Bakugo. But to then have Bakugo get exploding, because I still don't know what else to call it, cluster cowling, that almost seems too long.
Full body cluster, I think it's called.
But what I like about that power up also is that it felt inevitable. Like I think a lot of us were waiting, like, well, I mean, he sweats from everywhere in his body, like his stuff gathers sweat all over. It's not like it's just his palm sweat that's explosive. So really, that was just like the natural conclusion of his power. And I'm so glad that we got a power up that genuinely felt like the natural conclusion to his power. But that version of Bakugo, when he wasn't in control, was keeping up with top speed all for one, who was using multiple quirk boosters and all kinds of other stuff. I don't think that type version of Bakugo gives like gear shifted Fajin Deku a run for its money, but it feels like that version of Bakugo could possibly contend with like just the base one for all, maybe like a Black Whip package.
Yep.
I wish Shoto had gotten like a bit of a bigger fight with his Phosphor now, like just because.
Oh,
what we
dude.
see, like from what we see with Bakugo versus like, and like I get it because Shoto's plot is definitely supposed to be more about the emotion and the heart and all that other stuff. It's just, damn, it feels kind of bad that like,
Dude, he's like, it's so ironic that like all Endeavor went through all that BS just for Shoto to kind of like end up solidly third place, arguably competing with Tokoyami, who I think is only real step up over Tokoyami is that Black Shadow shies away from light.
yeah.
So
Yeah, some things you can't overcome.
Yeah.
Tokoyami top 3.
Tokoyami
Yeah.
is the potential man of MHA, unfortunately, but he at least looks very
Oh,
good at doing it.
Okay, he's done more than Megami.
No,
So
he's more than.
Don't put that on your boy.
Look,
he never listen.
he
No,
hasn't
no, you don't
beaten
understand, bro.
a villain is the thing. He
never got
jobs, and that's okay. He's good at it.
Hey, he beat the fuck out of Dentist Boy.
You don't understand.
Can't remember his name right now, but
you don't understand. You can't give him that disrespect, okay? Megumi got slapped up while summoning his ultimate attack.
He got slapped
Look.
by his ultimate attack, bruh. You ever get loaded by your own attack? Boy, that's crazy. I would never let that happen to me.
Fair
I
enough.
don't like the only reason I don't like calling Tokoyami Potential Man is because I think in some ways I think he actually did get to deliver. Yes, he does kind of job, but he was fast enough to get Hawks away from Dabi. Like really just not dying to Dabi is actually a feat. And it's weird because Dabi spends a lot of time just like, excuse me, like you got to consider
That was a
that
Ruby versus NL level matchup. I ain't gonna lie.
Look,
like
fighting AFO is a feat, and he did it good. So, like, I'm
he
not
had
upset
AFO
at his
mad.
performance.
Yeah, he
So-
got Tokoyami gave Awful One PTSD flashbacks for being in the dark.
See, he's just a side character is the thing, and that's kind of why he doesn't get to have like the actual victory type moments that you expect from a
Yeah.
main
But
character.
let's not forget which version of AFO he fought.
Right.
Tokoyami fought like peak, Shaq height could join the NBA AFO.
He fought
Bakugo was
post
fighting
mentioning that he was
13-year-old
going to
AFO.
violate
That's a different. That's
with his
different.
pants off AFO.
Yeah.
His
So,
schlong dangling in the wind.
Like you
Like,
forget, okay, when Bakugo did his his thing, you know what I'm saying? I'm pretty sure AFO wasn't even old enough to drive. I'm pretty sure it would have been illegal if he stayed home past 3 hours. He
Yeah,
was like
like-
8 years old at that point.
Like he put everything into that final all for one goal attack, but and that was like offensively the most powerful, but like he was basically a glass cannon at that point. Like he could,
Right.
so once Bakugo
Like I
overcame
said.
that, it was almost kind of easy.
Mhm.
Because it was just like attack, attack, attack. Focus
Like
all
I
on
said,
attack.
bro.
Look, I'm not gonna put
At-
down. Well,
in-
this isn't to
at
put
night,
anyone down.
Listen, at night, Tokoyami top 3 and he ain't 3. It's that simple.
look,
It's not like he's gonna like actually have to fight Shoto or Bakugo anyway, so it's
No.
really not like a competition.
So my thing is
and
that
he's also not a main character, so there's not an expectation for him to deliver on that. So he does his job in the story, I think.
when people put it, I don't. So the reason why I wanted to defend Tokoyami from the potential man being is because when I think potential man, I think Rock Lee, who we get these really cool moments with early, and then he kind of just vanishes from the story, and then he comes back at the end, and it's like it feels like you're just here to be included. Like there's no narrative satisfaction to your moment here.
He on the practice roster.
Like whereas with Tokoyami, so like this is like my actual thought on why I don't want Tokoyami to be labeled a potential man, not just talking about like power scaling, but also it was really cathartic after finding out about his relationship with Hawks during joint training, and then how Hawks kind of trained him, but wasn't really spending a lot of time with him, to actually get him to see him fight side by side with Hawks and like actually still have a character journey that was still neatly wrapped up in that battle event for Hawks to stand his ground and protect Tokoyami at the end after he had done, that whole Baldur's Light super huge Ragnarok form, just going brazy out here. So we got to see like a high action point plus an actual narrative, like see through like line that went through and reached what I considered a satisfying conclusion of like Hawks, who talks about how he's not always thinking about the next generation after losing his quirk, having nothing but a sword, standing his ground, ready to die to a mob of togas if it meant Tokoyami would live. Like, I think that connection and stuff was just really good. Because like when I think of potential man, I don't only think of wow, they could have like whooped more niggas' asses. I think, wow, JJK spoilers incoming. The conclusion to Megumi's relationship with his sister is super unsatisfying. And
That's wild.
and my boy got jacked, and I didn't get to see his completed domain. And like
it makes me so mad, dude. But
Megumi was like
might
my
be the
favorite of
most-
the kids. So
we'll
Megumi
be
might
here.
the most old character in modern shonen, bro. If you're a Megami fan, I don't understand how you could like still be happy. His stock
he's
has never been in the positives. It has always been negative. You just in debt every time
Well,
you that
he
stock.
gets it worse than Eustace from One Piece. Like it's
well,
Oh
if
my God.
you're
Well,
if
listen,
you
bro.
are a
If your
shipper,
stock, listen, in 2024, if your stock is worse than this kid, you gotta sell it. Your
look, if
stock is actively putting you in debt. That's crazy.
look,
That's
if you're
crazy.
a shipper, you probably will enjoy the idea of Yuji rescuing Megumi or something. That's, I guess, the cope you've
Oh
got.
no, no, no.
thank God they're
If
not
you're
writing
into
that.
shipping or whatever,
Damsel in
that's
They're not
distress,
writing
fine.
this shit then.
But if you're
basically.
investing, but if you're investing for power scaling, it's like, bro, sell this stock. It's literally just always at zero, and it started at zero, and then
Dude,
it's
not
still
even
going
power
down.
scaling. His like his whole character is just he's a plot device now.
Oh no, 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 no.
It
He's literally
hurts.
potential man because he's supposed to have the 10 shadows technique, and
And
how that was
Sukuna
supposed to make him.
destroyed that, so he's not getting that back, even if he does return. I mean,
Yeah, man.
he probably will return in some form, but I don't know.
I'm telling you, man.
Oh,
Y'all
I
sell
missed
that
a
And it,
great
stock.
super
Y'all
chat.
are actively getting more broke because of it.
And I want to get Seth's opinion on this because I know Seth is on a timer. So Mr. Andrew came through this time again, not with a comedy super chat. This is two
Thank
serious
you.
ones in one day. This is crazy. If Deku gives him OFA, could we get a vestige Deku in AFO looking for Tenko inside AFO? I want a scene of Deku telling Tenko, "I am here."
Yeah, that's really nice. No, I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm actually having to skedaddle pretty soon.
Yeah. That's why I want you to. I wanted your opinion on that real quick, just because I know
Cool.
we're on that timeline for you.
Yeah. No, thank you. But yes, that's part of why I really like, and I've always wanted a final vestige battle. I felt like it had to happen. The way Horikoshi set it up was that Shigaraki could already see the vestiges, so I became uncertain if we would actually get that. But this chapter, we kind of return to that form of where I think we do need to go. There needs to be that one last quote unquote struggle over One for All. Like, One for All represents the soul of this series because it's the power Deku shared with All Might, and of course, there's the line of other heroes as well, but the core of the series is Deku and All Might, at least to me. Um, so I'm really glad that we're returning to fighting over that metaphorical and literal soul right now. For Tenko's soul at that matter. So no, I do think that that's where we go. Deku has to reach Shigaraki from within, and I think Deku also uses, because remember, the embers still remain, even if Deku does give him the quirk. So we're looking at, I think, an inside and outside battle of sorts. How that goes, I have no idea, by the way, because that just sounds insane. Um, just the idea of Deku fighting Shigaraki inside and out. But I'm here for it. How that concludes, I'm gonna try and leave that to the author because again, MHA is so wrapped up in its narrative themes and such that it's kind of hard to really say, oh, I really, really want this specific thing to happen for some kind of arbitrary reason. I kind of have to go with the themes here because if you're not invested in MHA's themes, um, you're kind of setting yourself up, I think. So, Horikoshi can go a few ways with it. If he really does go with the route that Deku ends up being quirkless, I can live with that because I think there's still a degree of closure you can have with that. And as I said earlier today, like having power isn't the end all be all of heroism. Um, all that being said, yeah, it's really exciting how the stakes have built up, and I'm looking forward to seeing them conclusion. I did want to comment on one last thing before I leave. So Deku's quote unquote introspection. I'm really, really glad that Kudo touched up on what actually does drive Deku, because this is something that I've suspected for a long time now. And the fandom tends to baby Deku. I understand, like, no one likes bullies. No one. Um, um, I'm sure bullies don't really even like themselves. That's probably why they do it. Um, but how I feel about it is that shoot, one second. Okay, sorry about that. The dog was being annoying. No. So what was I saying? Oh right. Okay. So the the bullying is obviously horrible and wrong. It's just that the things that guard you against unfairness in life is basically faith. Like you have to believe in something, some kind of moral compass that keeps you on track such that you don't get lost. Um Deku's had it rough. Like through Dark Hero arc, that was his very big test that he may or may not have overcome until particularly Ochako, particularly Uraraka, but everyone else affirmed his heart that he is a hero and a person. And
Careful,
I'm
Seth.
looking forward to seeing that come to play here. I think that Deku's drive, his inner drive is for equality. He wants to believe that even though he was quirkless, he's still equal to someone like Bakugo, for example. He and that is his core driving. So it's not so much trauma that drives Deku, even though you can argue that definitely feeds into it. Like he felt put down by Bakugo in the first place, obviously. But beyond that, he still feels he wanted that affirmation that he was equal. And that goes a little bit deeper than just uh, what is it? Just the bullying aspect of his life. I think that's more a more strong. That I think that's a stronger core than people give credit, and I don't think people necessarily respect that. Because again, he is a victim, so it's easy to pity him and want him to act out more. He doesn't really act out a lot, quite frankly. And even I am like, I wish that Deku wouldn't just fold to Bakugo for gags. I've never been a fan of that. All that being said, though, um, I admire that he, more than he is hurt, more than his pain, he's looking towards that equality that he thinks that we all have with each other. So I'm looking forward to seeing him prove that. Sorry for the awkward rant, but I don't know. MHA really just digs in there for me. So thanks for
You
having
never
me,
have to
guys.
apologize for rants because this podcast wouldn't exist without rants.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's true.
That's
All
what-
right. So thank you for existing.
That's a
Have a great
Yeah,
time,
that's a
everyone.
Yes,
pleasant sentence.
thanks for springing into being, Aniki. Catch you next time, Seth.
See you, Seth.
Bye.
But if anybody else wants to kind of dig into that topic, feel free. Otherwise, we can move forward. But I just
Yeah,
wanted to make sure Seth got that before he left.
I'd say Seth basically said everything that I wanted to say. I think the
Yeah,
only
no, he kind of killed it. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
But
I think the only thing I'd add is people have a lot of different ideas about Deku, like what he should be, who he should be close to, what he should be doing, what he should be thinking, and it's like people don't let him be a character. They like you were talking about like people have their kind of check boxes for what trauma responses are.
mhm.
I feel like in general, people have check boxes for him in particular because he is the MC and he's where what everything revolves around, more or less. So it's just frustrating to see people who don't really let him be a character. They want him to be like kind of a walking marker who checks off each of their little check boxes. Like, oh, he had the heart to heart where he really gave Bakugo what for. Is like, oh, well, he also thought more about bullying. It's like, well, what he's been thinking about stuff this whole final act. He has been a very introspective, very withdrawn person, especially after PLW, because, and I said this on my Twitter, but Deku is thinking about some very specific characters during Final Act for the most part, and it is not really Bakugo or Todoroki or most of the other Class 1A members, because he's thinking very big picture here. He's been thinking about how to deal with Shigaraki for the most part.
Yeah.
Like that's been his whole character, because he understands that how he deals with Shigaraki is going to decide everything.
I've also realized that one of the things that, and I shouldn't even say this is realized because I've been aware of this. I have not consciously been thinking about how this shapes my view on Deku until realizing how out of touch people come off to me when they talk about Deku. But consistently, Deku's similarities with All Might are highlighted, and they are often emphasized as a bad thing.
Yeah, he like Gran Torino straight up tells him it's like you're too chained by your admiration for All Might. And a lot of that comes from the fact that they have that same innate crazy desire to destroy themselves if it means even one other person will be safe.
And the thing is that All Might has directly been called an obsessive workaholic who blew up and sabotaged his personal relationships to the extent where he barely reaches out to Gran Torino, even though, which I mean, that was also because Gran Torino was whooping his ass, but you know, a little bit of trauma is sprinkled in there, but still. So when you look at why isn't Deku talking about his feelings a bunch? Because that's not the job, that's not the mission. People, and the other thing is, I think people see Deku smile like, oh yeah.
They see him being
That ooh cinnamon roll thing
they
has
see him being
warped.
yeah. They see him being gentle as a sign of weakness. Like even if they aren't necessarily aware of it, like the way people talk about him, like they see his gentle and kind demeanor as weakness. Like people call him like, oh, little crybaby bitch boy. And it's like,
Well,
bro, like
Well, the thing is that a lot of people see, gentleness and kindness as weakness. That's not a Deku specific thing. That's just a thing conditioned by a lot of men to believe it. They just associate it with Deku. That's
so
facts.
Don't confuse kindness for weakness.
a lot of that, like look, the whole series is really kind of stripping away at toxic mentalities, and it tackles that from a lot of different angles. It can be a self-toxic sense of obligation like Deku has. It can be like senses of toxic masculinity that Bakugo and Endeavor display. It can be toxic fanboyism like like All for One's whole character really was. At Ochako holding on to her feelings. It's like you can't keep those bottled up. That's another type of toxic mentality. So it's about characters breaking away from that, and the ones who don't break away from it are the ones who ultimately end up suffering the consequences.
I also want to say that I like that Ochako and Toga sort of like show you both sides of that spectrum. Like you can sit around and repressing your feelings all the time, and that's not good for you. But you also cannot be completely subservient to your whims because it will lead you to conflict and it will create rifts, even though Toga stuff is a lot of other things too. But like not having that impulse control will inevitably cause you to not suck somebody's blood, but inevitably will cause you to cause harm in some way that you don't understand because you're just doing what you feel is right instead of taking that step back from what you feel or desire, which is a conversation that I think is especially difficult in the current landscape of discourse.
Anime, weebs, stupid
Yeah.
people.
I think one thing I'd like to to iterate on when it comes to the whole like toxic masculinity thing. It's like I think part of why people like associate kindness and gentleness with weakness is that they see um masculinity as a sort of competition in terms of aggression. And when you view masculinity that way, it doesn't really open up space to be vulnerable. And I think it's ultimately rooted in a very childish view of what
Yeah,
being a
you also
man is.
there's a reason why shipping discourse is largely dominated by women and why power scaling discourse is largely dominated by men. Like
I
there's
mean,
reasons for
there
that.
is, I mean, you can see a pretty clear sociological tie to that for sure. But it's like, I also think it just reeks heavily of insecurity.
Oh, 100%. And really, like I think insecurity is what MHA is really all about. Like each character does not feel as sure of themselves as they necessarily present themselves, right? Like that ends up being like a common flaw. And I think even Shigaraki, like him and Tenko are one and the same, but also sort of not, but also sort of are. And it's like we're gonna get into some specifics here, but Shigaraki, his desire to destroy Japan and then the world, that's also simultaneously a defense mechanism because he talks about burying Tenko deep within himself. That's a self-defense mechanism because that little like inner vestige world with all the buildings, that's a shield. You also saw it with the defensive form where his body adapted and interlinked all those different fingers and hands. And then he literally manifested all the faces from his the most traumatic parts of his childhood, his family, and then the woman he remembered most who refused him help. So he's dealing with insecurity himself. Like whatever front he puts on, Deku knows that there's something else behind it. And he doesn't give up even when Nana says, it's like, look, you gotta cut this short. I'm sorry I asked this of you. There's nothing else you can do. But Deku insists, no, there is still something behind that. And so we're literally seeing that for this next stretch of chapters right before the absolute ending. And I'm so excited to see how it pans out.
So, question for you guys: do you think Float is getting stolen? And if it does get stolen, because I personally think this, how do you think it will backfire for Shigaraki?
I I I think they might be. I mean, they've said that like if Shigaraki touches Deku again, he's probably going to be able to snatch up all the quirks. So paired with the ending of this chapter, and again how early it is into the fight, they might be gearing up to like do an all or nothing like bum rush on the inner All for One Vestige world. And I think what's going to happen is this series is all about subverting expectations. I don't think it's going to be as simple as Deku reaching the inner vestige world and speaking to Tenko and being like, it's all right, I'm here. Because think of how victims of abuse respond to help. They see it as another means of attack. And I think Shigaraki is going to be doing the same thing here. I think despite Deku's efforts, there's going to be that difficulty to communicate because they always leave with the talk no jutsu first. They always try to do the talk no jutsu first, and it never works. Like, I mean, I think the closest you've really gotten to it is Ochako and Toga. But even then, that was like very specifically, Toga always wanted a simple conversation with Ochako, and some crazy shit happened right in and around that too. And Ochako had to get stabbed before Toga could see her sincerity. So it's gonna get a lot worse for Deku before it gets better. So Shigaraki is going to have to actually understand that no, Deku actually means this before any type of breakthrough happens. And so I think that that's going to mean more fighting. Um, and I am holding fast. I do think Deku is going to get a bump. get a buff of some kind. I'm not sure if he gets New Order. I'm not sure if it's a rule placed on him or if it's something that happens when coming in contact with the Off One Vestige world. I'm not sure. But given how things have gone lately with like different power-ups, I think he is getting a last buff of some kind. And also, I would be remiss if I didn't mention this. Uh, Deku putting the black whip strands under his skin, enhancing his muscles. That's not only something similar to what Muscular was doing, it was also what you see on that exhibition art of Deku no Chako floating in the sky.
Well,
Yep. I can send it in the chat right now if you want.
I'm typing it in.
Yep.
Oh, yep. Yep. You
Yep.
can see the little. See, what's funny is that, and I said this while I was reading the chapter on stream, was that I had said that Deku was doing this because it was mentioned by the doctor during PLW, and it was part of the reason why his arms didn't take as much damage. And I was told that that was an egregious interpretation of what was said, only for Horikoshi to very kindly give us the X-ray shot this chapter and be like, no, like this is what he's doing. And I said this is what he's doing, so here's a visual of him doing it. What I also like about it though is that it kind of takes you back to the early anime shots when he would charge up one for all into a single limb, and then you would get that glowy, weird look on his flesh. So
The X
Oh,
on the
he's
face
got the
was from
full
the X on the face was from
Yeah.
the flash forward in season 2's premiere.
Yeah, he's got like he's activating full cowling, shoot style, whatever, full blast now. And also, he does not have any supports, and he's able to tank what I think are near full powered blasts. I think the true 100% comes when like when that like string of lights happens and like you kind of grab onto it. That's the visual. I don't think he's 100% yet, but I think that his true limit is very high because he blasted away uh the Air Force gloves and the gauntlets. So
yeah,
he doesn't he doesn't need those anymore.
and even then, like the bullet, the Air Force gloves are really just so that it compresses and like gives direction to the air shots. Whereas here, using a big sweeping shot was worth it. That's why I like how in World's Heroes mission, when he doesn't have his gloves and he does the Delaware Smash, it still works, but you can tell that it's like far more, like it's more like a shotgun instead of a pistol there.
Yeah, it's more wide range instead of
And
concentrated.
and this was funny. Well, I did kind of step into power scaling Twitter for a little bit, like I think a couple weeks ago, and I was like, damn, Deku and Shigaraki are probably the strongest characters in Jump outside of the Undead Unluck negators. And obviously that
People were very unhappy with that.
yeah, people weren't really happy with that, but if he does get New Order, I'm gonna be curious how that pans out and what people will say. And I will say this though, I don't think the Luffy we see has even tapped into anywhere close to the full potential of Gear 5. So I think end of series Luffy is probably going to be stronger than Deku, but we'll see. We shall see.
And it's a shame that people can't appreciate the actual power level of the series, but I'm okay with that too. Because like at the same time, this fandom has a lot of literacy struggles already. And
You're telling me
I
I saw like God, it was really bad. Like I can't even remember, but it's like it's just over and over again. People are like it's so dumb, man. Like it's so dumb we have to deal with this.
the other thing too that I like about how this fight has been is that it's very clear that Shigaraki taking Danger Sense is almost more of a nerf than a buff because Deku was like, "Cool, I'll just set a trap for him that makes Danger Sense just constantly go off."
Yeah, like he spent like 2 months training with all his different quirks, so he knows them inside and out. And he knows exactly what sets danger sense off. So it's just like, are you're gonna yank my chain? All right. I'm just gonna tie it around your neck and pull.
Like,
Choke you. You like
I
that?
mean,
And it's like
yeah.
it's crazy too, because like he's getting super pissed right now. But he's still like insisting that he's gonna shave Shigaraki as he's like punching off his arms, as he's like beating the shit out of him. He's like, I'm gonna smash open that lid, or what the scan said, I'm going to destroy that rug. Like, I'm gonna beat the shit out of him if I gotta do what I gotta do.
I need to be honest here. I see why it was localized to lid because I'm going to destroy that rug. Sounds so fucking dumb. It sounds so fucking dumb.
Yeah. Seth, and I had a little conversation about that while you were searching for I think it was like Stars Gauntlet in the
Yeah.
manga, and uh, it was it's a really shame that you didn't have the headphones on for that because it was a really interesting conversation. I just don't remember the exact, but it had a lot to do with like how Japanese works as a language, which Seth knows that a lot better than I do. So
Yeah. But no, I was gonna jokingly be like R.I.P. Steph, but he's not. He's not dead. He's just not with us. Well,
Yeah.
there we go. It's still.
language, okay. uh,
Wait. Okay.
Now,
So
how much does the world know about All for One and One for All? Like,
they
did
don't.
we ever get like a real concrete thing on that? And I'm just
They know
forgetting.
they know they exist and they know they're in relation to each other, and people are speculating that Deku has one for all.
All for One, as far as people know, is this super evil villain that used to exist, but due to largely public record eradication, most people just see him as a highly connected villain. And that's why I've found Shigaraki supplanting him swapping his body, all that other stuff to be such a good conclusion to his character arc because it makes him throughout not only throughout the bit of manga we've read, right? Like for the manga we've read for this 2 years within the My Hero universe, All for One has effectively been a side character because Shigaraki is the one who leads the League of Villains. Shigaraki is the one who, you know, everyone has their eyes on. And when he puts his quirk into Shigaraki's body, Shigaraki takes over. So he doesn't get to like take over and snatch the fame that Shigaraki built up either, right? So he doesn't get to do any of that. He just loses out. And as far as a lot of the world is concerned, even though the government will know that All for One was a bad mamma jamma, as far as the people are concerned, All for One is nothing but a sidekick slash mentor figure that just helped an evil dude get really evil. So for all of his main character syndrome, his legacy, as far as the majority of the population of the world, like 99% of the people in the world, will be that he is a side character.
Yeah,
Not even the main villain.
his actual biggest claim to fame is Kamino, where he forced All Might to retire. But even then, that just becomes so eclipsed by all the crazy shit that happens like 5, 6 months later. When
And the fact that he got arrested.
yeah,
So,
that he got
No,
the
because
fact that he got
I was asking in like because I was trying to think in terms of if Star could have used a rule or not. So like if she knew about someone having One for All, she could have done a rule that New Order will assist the user of One for All when
yeah.
when the time is right. That was my thought process. Just
that's probably what happened. Like the fact that she's even appeared when she's supposed to be destroyed, like that indicates that she put in some kind of last minute rule.
Because we saw that the vestige ended up having some form of consciousness.
Yeah.
If New Order, and by extension, we have an established precedent in Decay, because Decay decayed the stress ball, which is a physical manifestation of an idea, more or less. Then, if in that moment Kathleen Bate decided, like the vestige of her, I as a quirk will make a rule upon myself as a quirk, it's not that far fetched, because she said Kathleen Bate will not decay. Notice that she started decaying and then could have thought to herself, I need to make another rule with my quirk real quick, because she had already made that rebellion rule. Could have made another rule that it'll go into hiding, something like that, and then go help One for All later. It was one of those things that I didn't want to believe in right away, because I was like, man, if we don't get it, I'm going to be sad for pushing that agenda. But I mean, if we got the glut now, we can finally look at this and go, hey, she's not totally dead, which I guess is nice for some people, since they feel like she didn't get enough done with her. In reality, they just wanted more material. But
the funny thing is, like, the leaks for this chapter came out on Tuesday. On Monday, Cheapy did a rage bait tweet saying how Star was Horikoshi's biggest fumble.
I remember that. And he got roasted again. I'm like, I don't want to dwell too much on like kind of like the whole.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not trying to. I think that timing was hilarious.
It was so funny seeing that timing, because it's like, well, look, my thought process with the Star and Stripe fight is like, yes, it's there to kind of to explain how everybody can deal with Shigaraki in the meantime until Deku gets there, like to debuff him a bit and cause him problems. But you technically don't really need it otherwise. And so my thinking was that she was going to pop up later in some capacity. And we're seeing that happen now. As it's the literal end of the series, and Sarah's still got a moment. We got the 3 dumb Bigos. God. I
Well, like, the most immediate impact of the Star fight was that the other nations of the world saw what happened and pulled back their support. So it effectively isolated Japan for this fight. So
honestly, I think her going after him, like while unsanctioned, it probably was the right move anyways, because it's like, why let All For One smoothly plan and establish everything when you can
like
give
she
them a
even said
setback?
as much. Like, the order's gonna come through eventually. Why not just go?
Yeah. And honestly, like they probably would have not supported Japan anyways, I think. Like the UN and other world superpowers, they were already implied to be pretty indecisive. Star getting killed was that just their excuse not to go, because they're dealing with all their own stuff, remember? Like All For One was reaching out to his contacts. I was like, yeah, stir shit up. Make it so that they can't that the worldwide economy is all in trouble. And so countries would see that and be like, we gotta deal with our own stuff first. There's like these people, this Shigaraki, it looks like a lot. It looks like bad news. I don't know if we can stop him, even if we tried. Which I do think, like, I think people are kind of used to like the whole rah 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 fight the power type of America we see in a lot of media. But honestly, the way things shook out this chapter, I mean, sorry, shook out in this last stretch of the story, I think it's arguably pretty realistic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's funny. Like I think it was like way back in volume 31, Horikoshi said he pictured the entire third act being 5 volumes, while the final arc is like entering its 5th volume of the manga.
Oh, we're
Because we should be in volume. I think
Well,
we should have finished volume 40 by now. It would like
we're
this.
done volume 40, so this is like the 10th volume of final act now. And
Yeah,
I'm
mhm.
gonna be honest, you're probably looking at 42, 43 volumes overall. It just
yeah.
depends. It depends on page length, chapter count. Sometimes end of series also release extended final manga volumes, or like standardly they'll be like 180 to 200, 220 pages.
Yeah.
They might
I will
extend it.
say we've been getting healthy page counts lately too, so that's been
Yeah.
nice.
True. True. He's
Yeah.
really like now that he's in the last stretch, he's really taking time to just draw and visualize everything he means to. Like that Bakugo chapter where he's like wailing away at all for one. That
Yep.
was that's probably his best art ever. And we still have the climax of this Deku battle coming. So
I
just
just
imagine how
remember.
much more crazy he's gonna get.
Yeah, there's no way that the art we get in this final battle is going to be eclipsed by that fight. And that's not, like you said, like it's not an insult to that previous battle. It's just what we're going to get is going to be up there.
I just feel
Just
so
because.
bad for the animators that have to do this.
So
There
that's kind of the other thing I always feel bad about is that, especially now that we have studios with terrible working conditions for their
yeah,
staff, people are like, well, why can't everybody get these results? And it's like, because not everybody has the same level of working conditions. And it's very clear that Bones tries to do everything at a manageable level on a fixed timeline. And they don't, I would say, because obviously with season 5, there ended up being some issues because again, COVID and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
But it's very clear that Bones prioritizes a decent to look at anime with a decent structure and decent hours for their employees over the Mappa approach of you guys are gonna work like dogs so we can get the best possible
dude, it pisses me off
animation out
so
of you.
it pisses me off so much when like I see tweets joking about like, oh, the Mappa employee who's like just got the notice from their boss, they're not gonna be able to see their family for like 4 weeks. I'm like, dude, you just come off like you're celebrating these shitty working conditions so long as you get a pretty enough show to look at.
And the
Like
thing,
generally you
The most shocking thing about the Shibuya arc JJK anime is the perception went of how Mappa treats its animators went from like an open secret to common knowledge during that time. It's just
and here's the sad thing, it's like
people
in
didn't really
general,
care.
yeah, people don't care. It's like ultimately what people remember are is the actual product, and like they're not privy to a lot of the behind the scenes stuff, and they like even if they acknowledge it happens, they don't necessarily care. And it's like I understand that. I just don't agree with that apathy.
Yeah.
But that's getting into like larger human issues and problems that I don't know if I'm prepared to go into on this
but
stream.
the thing that I wanted to say is that Bones will still give you absurdly well done moments.
Yep.
Like the full 100% Manchester Smash was awesome. The problem that people are running into is that Bones cannot just it isn't feasible without switching to the Mappa approach. Get every moment to the level of that full 100% smash against Lady Nagant. And a lot of people want all those moments to be up there with that moment.
Yeah,
I,
but
I think it's
my
also
thing was like Mob Psycho 100. The final season was done like a year before Aaron, and then they just spent that time to make little tweaks throughout. I just like shouldn't more anime be like that, where you just
It's
do
also
it?
important to note that even with the MAPPA approach, just the way everything was scheduled, even though the working conditions were insane, eventually it started lowering um the quality because
it
Oh
got
yeah,
rough.
towards the end, I just like every
towards the end, production was literally starting to crash and they had and that's why they're taking a break, but it's also like Sukuna versus Mahoraga was initially planned to be much larger. There was going to be tons of more sequences, but it's like when you're running with solo,
Dude,
fuel and gas in the tank, it's like like the animators, I believe, said they did like 30% of their original vision. So it's like
I
eventually
heard
even this super
I heard that wasn't true.
strenuous
dude,
approach.
almost
Mhm.
everything after that Toto cut that was inspired by the All Might sequences from MHA.
Oh yeah, the
Mhm.
United States of
Yeah,
Takahata-chan.
almost everything after that is very stiff.
Yeah, I thought like the last
My point
quarter
is
of the
that
season
even
was.
even with the Mappa approach, it's like eventually you just start
And
just
here
running out of time to deliver these things because time is what we're realistically working with.
you
If
run
we're
out of
talking about good
you run out
animation,
of time, you run out of manpower, and it's like, look,
and you're also just fatigued, especially after you've been working for so long.
here's the
As
thing.
highlighted in by these working conditions, it's like
Here's the other thing that I think plagues anime discussion. It's when people would take manga panels and then they
mhm.
compare
Bro,
still anime scenes to them and be like, look how good this looks. I'm like, dude, that's literally a fucking trace of the manga.
Listen, bro. Some people, when I hear that, some people just unironically just need to get like beat with like a baseball bat on
And
their knees or something like
and dude,
that,
so
bro.
many people think like this because they're not thinking about what a show does as an adaptation, as an anime. They want a translation of the manga. And it's like,
they
bro.
want that translation up until it's time to talk about the sky.
Oh, oh, and then that's when they say they got to utilize the medium. That's crazy.
Bro, I pointed out, like, I was just explaining why the sky is blue in MHA for the most part. And it's like, look, it's just to show the kind of normal, idyllic circumstances Hero Society is normally in.
Yep.
And people got mad at me for it. I was like, well, that's not the issue. I'm like, bro, I'm not saying the way they do the art direction in the show isn't bad. I was just literally explaining why it is that way. But they took that
Look,
as a defense.
my stance is you can either go for the thematic, and that's the part that kills me is that they're like, it's for theming, and I'm like, no, 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 no. The blue, the normal, regular sky is a part of MHA's theming. That is why, if you go back through the series, overhaul arc takes place in the morning, and they specifically make it a point to mention this happened in the morning. Like that ends up being a part of the plot that it was in the morning.
On a
That's
Tuesday,
why
a
when
Wednesday, middle of
Deku
your work
Black
week.
Art happens and it becomes nighttime, it's why it's such a distinct like visual change.
I saw
Just when
people
you're
complaining that
experiencing
the Star and
morning.
Stripe battle was taking place during the day again. I'm like, dude, volume 34 literally shows a blue ass sky right behind Star.
The
And
chapter is
honestly, if
called Deep
anything,
Blue Sky Battle
yeah, if honestly, if
or
anything, the little glimpses we've seen of that fight, the sky actually looks pretty good because it's like it's
Like
blue and the clouds are below.
it's baffling because everything should be how it was in the manga, except I want this thing changed from the manga, except this shot because it's an animation and because this airs at like 5 p.m. on Saturday mornings or some shit. in Japan, it has less blood in it than the manga, so that's bad. It's like you're just never going to be happy. You're never going to be happy with whatever they give you. No
My
matter
thing
what
is
they
like,
do, you are
yeah.
going to find something to be upset about because you don't care for real about the adaptation. What you actually have is FOMO from these fucking slave labor studios. And you
Bro,
want
I'm
what
telling you,
they
bro, Mappa.
produce.
Listen, bro, I'm telling you, at Mappa, they work them animators. They got hours in the day. They use imaginary time out there, man. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Like, and like even the whole MHA's background's a horrible thing is, if I'm sorry, but that feels hyperbolic as hell. Like that feels extremely hyperbolic.
I'm gonna be
Horrible
honest.
just seems like too far, like too harsh of a word for it.
I'm gonna
They're
be
just
honest.
not.
Like the whole thing with the backgrounds, genuinely, and like, dude, for the most part, they're in the fucking middle urban landscapes, metropolises. Like, there's a sequence in season 5 where Deku Bakugo and Shoto are following after Endeavor, and it actually looks really good. They use backgrounds very well there because it's like it's not really like in the end, it's not as big of an issue as people make it out to be. I like, and when I speak to people who talk about the show, they never bring up the backgrounds because like you're not really meant to notice it for the most part.
Yeah, like
Also, the thing is that I feel like when you start talking about like very technical aspects of like art composition in terms of like backgrounds and stuff, it's like unless you are like no, no, hold on, like I feel like a lot of it is uninformed. Like it's not actually coming from a place of technical
Well,
expertise or just competence, really.
you know, it's not coming from a place of like, do I think this would actually be the best for the anime in a lot of ways? And maybe they think they're thinking that way, but when you're telling me that you want to see Bones shift the colors and do stuff like what happens in JoJo's, I know you're not thinking about what this series is at all. Because JoJo's is the series where it's got that popular meme where JoJo fans will watch a dude say he won a fight by tripping over a log and shoving a frog up his ass and just go with it. And that's a good JoJo's having color swaps and shit that don't make sense because the series does a lot of wacky shit.
I can already tell that part 7 anime is going to take a long time.
the horses.
Not just because of the manga, but because from what I've seen, I haven't gotten to that part yet, but from what I've seen, part 7 of JoJo is fucking wild. There's some
Bro, I read part 7, bro. Low
It's a
key.
horse race.
Yeah, I mean, facts, but also literally though. Like literally.
So yeah, it's just
It starts off kind of slow, but when it starts like heating up, oh no, that's like they're cooking with grease with that one.
And even the blue
Yeah,
sky in the final arc, it's like, oh, well, it needs to be dark and dim because like it's a sense of foreboding. I'm like, dude, the sense of foreboding comes after Bakugo gets killed.
yeah,
That's
because
the real switch to the arc.
that's when it starts raining, right?
Yeah, that's when the cumulonimbus starts to form because the Todoroki family are really heating it up in specific areas of Japan, which should tell
Yeah.
you how hot they are, that they can change the weather like that.
in season 4. The reason why they made that change to the Endeavor fight is because that was basically the least story relevant that the sky had been in a fight. Almost like, think about it, overhaul battle, sky still blue. It's supposed to take place 9:30 a.m. on a Tuesday. Okay, maybe not specifically a Tuesday, but yeah, it's basically like 8:30.
But it's just a
Uh
random day in the middle of the week. I get what you're saying.
yeah. The PLW art is like we see a kid on his way to his first day of classes. If you expect that sky to be anything other than morning blue, you don't care about because and this is one of the things that I've realized is that people are like, don't you understand color theory? Blah, blah, blah. Don't you understand that color theory is not the be all end all? Because especially in the case of My Hero, and I think I said this before, it wasn't magically rainy as the planes were headed towards the Twin Towers. There's a certain level of, as much as the show is fantastical, it is supposed to be fantastical things in a very normal setting. So if every time something dramatic or serious happens, the world is completely different, it becomes dumb for the characters to ever do anything in a world that, like, you can just look at this guy and see. It's like that's something somebody would
Makes the
pay
world
attention
too
to.
reactive.
Like the world needs to function like a normal world. Color theory is this idea that you use certain colors to match certain moods. So blues for sad, blah blah blah. Red is for more warm feelings. But in the case of with like MHA, the point in a lot of these selections is to up the horribleness of the situation. For example, if Makia does his run, like if we go with what a lot of people want, like, oh, big PLW at night and have it be extra dramatic because the skies are dark and da 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 da. Why are half these people commuting to work at 7 p.m.? Why is that kid on his way to school at 6 p.m.?
Maybe
The
I
chase
don't know.
None of
Maybe
that
they
makes
got late
sense.
days or something.
But because it was at like 9 a.m. on a regular day, Makia gets to run through and slap fucking subway trains full of people through buildings, and office workers get to be like, man, I knew I should have came to work today. This is ridiculous. Whew.
The
Good thing that
Camino
never
raid.
blasted the water call. Like, come on.
The Camino raid was specifically at night so that they could catch the League entirely unawares
Yep.
Yeah.
when they were
It's
unprepared.
at
Yeah.
night during an evening broadcast of the press conference. Like the
Right.
one thing like I wish maybe the sky was a little different was when Deku left UA. Like maybe just slightly a little overcast, or just to show like like for like a thematic of like how it's going to be. But you know, that's just something I would have liked. I'm not saying it's bad that they didn't do that.
I had
And
a
even that,
dream during the
we had the
wait,
progression through the arc of
Yeah.
Deku starts off like, I'm a little discouraged, but I'm gonna go out here and kick some ass and find off one, and then it only goes.
Yeah.
This, look, here's the thing, right? So during the Deku Black arc, I had a dream where like during the arc, it started like raining acid for some reason. Like this was in my dream, right? And Deku finds out who it is, and it was Toxic Chainsaw. That would have been pretty cool. Then I woke up and I was like, wow, that's dumb.
Oh, also Cameron Bailey, just because I want to make sure I'm understanding what you're saying. What I'm saying is that because of the commuting, because of the people going to school, etc., that's why those people are in those locations for that drama to happen. Because it's normal for people to like catch a train for 30 minutes in Japan to go to school somewhere or something like that. So if it's at night, all those, it's like if you think back to the early seasons of MHA, Deku, Ochako, and Ida all took the train to and from school. And so multiple students were hopping on trains and stuff to get to school. If you have that take place at night, all the commuters who are from like smaller towns outside the city that catch the train in are no longer in those areas with higher population densities. In fact, for those of you who have watched Durarara, if you remember, there was all that talk about like Ikebukuro, but Ikebukuro is largely like in the real world, like an office slash like work area where a lot of people don't live in Ikebukuro. They just travel to it and then leave it. So in that case, a tragedy happening in Ikebukuro at 9 a.m. is nowhere near the same impact as like if something blows up in Ikebukuro at like 9 p.m. just because who's there versus, so it's just population density, time of day activity, like they all matter. And I think that's part of why like and to a certain degree, the PLW kind of flips the luck of the overhaul arc on its head. Because the overall arc, it was like, wow, like there were only like 3 people actually in the neighborhood when Deku kicked this dude out from the ground and fought him in the air. So we barely had any civilians to worry about or anything like that. And then they tried that same strategy in PLW, and it's like, well, Makia ran through every single city to get here, and that has completely worked out of our favor.
Yeah.
This is disappointing. Uh,
How could you have done this?
so yeah, like it's just, and that's the thing is that most shows do not care what time it is. A lot of shows don't care what time it is. This is just true, especially in anime. A lot of times, whether or not it's day or night does not matter. And like I said, even in the Pro Hero arc, the fact that they did that fight like towards the evening doesn't take away from anything in that specific arc or in that specific fight. It just so happens that Horikoshi's gone out of his way multiple times to emphasize the time of day, draw it a certain way, and is trying to sell you the idea of fantastical tragedy in everyday circumstances. And the more you amp up the ante of the dramatic skies and all this other stuff, the more you lose that idea, which is part of the crux of the story. And it's part of what makes like the quaintness of hero society as a lie such a good sell. Because if every single time we're getting those dramatic things, it's like, oh yeah, like the sky just, but like when you're just looking at a normal thing, you kind of also get the perspective of the citizens in My Hero who get frustrated with heroes. Like they're tired of trying to go to work at 9 a.m. on a Tuesday in a car flying through their office building. Like they're tired of that shit.
God damn, man! Endeavor just rained fire down on all the villains.
Yo, low
They
key,
melted
the
my car
insurance rates
tires.
in Japan must be crazy though. Because think about it, like if your car can practically just get totaled by like even a minor villain. Oh man, Spike villain, the dude who can make spikes. He just trashed my Toyota.
I
Hold on, let
mean,
me call my insurance company.
there's a running joke in the background and in the extras that Mount Lady operating in the city
Mhm.
ironically causes more destruction than if she stayed out in the country or if she even let villains do their thing. Like she's as in debt as much as she's making money.
Hey man,
And
that's what we call breaking bread, going even.
she's in a catch-22 because if she worked out in the country
She
and
wouldn't
any
have as much
destruction
work.
happened, she wouldn't have as much work and she wouldn't make as much money to cover when the damages do come through. So she's literally just screwed. She basically shouldn't be a hero as far as finances are concerned, which does make her journey from like monetary focus to just trying to be a good hero make even more sense because the money was never going to work for her. Like that was never going to be the defining factor.
That's why she got that Conway Woods bag.
No, like
That's what we
I
call
love
insurance.
Mount
I'm
Lady's
like,
development because like it happens so gradually that you don't even notice it. It wasn't it really hit me when she was like giving her all to grapple with Makia during PLW. It was like she that's when I really noticed how much that she had actually changed from her early beginnings.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she put that pain in.
But yeah, all that to say though is that I'm willing to trade off stylistic visuals if it means that like the narrative is being sold properly. Which I mean, with the media literacy is what it is. I guess
and let's
Media
the
also
average
literacy is,
put
oh,
viewer
by the
would
way, media
probably.
literacy is only gonna get worse
yeah. And
throughout
let's put
time.
this into perspective. Like they're readapting Slam Dunk into a series of films. I think they're looking at a couple others. They did Berserk's Golden Age arc as a trilogy of movies. I think there will be other MHA adaptations in the future.
In the future, most definitely.
I mean,
But
we already know the One Piece is happening, so
Oh my God, that drives me nuts. Which studio's president? I forget his name, but he is a greedy bastard. Greedy
I'm
bastard.
okay with it,
Isn't
largely
like
because we've always like it's been a long discussion about how One Piece Kai is inevitably going to be a thing,
I
and
mean,
I'm like,
it's
yeah, this is the One Piece Kai right
yeah,
here.
it technically isn't technically like Kai, and I prefer the Kai approach, but it
yeah,
I,
Kai
I
is roughly a re-edit, right?
I yeah, Kai is a restoration slash re-edit.
Nah, bro. If I don't gotta, if I can't go through, if I can't go through countless episodes of filler to get to the main content, I don't want it.
It also reminds me.
This
I
is
know
more
we're
One Piece
trailing off
Brotherhood.
here. I know we're trailing off here, but I saw a tweet yesterday that said, "Ah, man, JJK doesn't do training arcs like other manga, and that's it. And people can't grasp that that's a good thing." I'm like, bro,
There's
that's
something from this episode that I
that's
really want to get
actually
into, but I
that's
know like we
yeah,
try
that's
not
actually
to.
one of its biggest issues that it does not leave a lot of room for more character focused stuff. And more to the point, the type of training arc he was talking about, those have not been a thing for a long time.
Wait, what type of arc was he training? What was he talking about?
I mean, look, no,
Like tuning his
very
anti-beat?
rarely,
Like what is it?
very rarely do you get like a whole arc dedicated just to like, I am going to focus inherently on this power and we're not going to, and it's going to grind the plot to a halt and we're not going to do anything else. It's like, normally when training arcs happen nowadays, they do advance the plot.
Yep,
Like it's not even it's
they work double time. Like, um, Culture Festival is centered on Eri, yes, but it's also Deku adjusting to his new gear, which is a form of training, and him getting to, in general, work on like using those percentage jumps for range smashes, which is how it's going to influence how he fights for the rest of that act. And we get a fight for Deku where he sets in place and really gets the cogs turning on that ability to empathize with the villains and think about where
yeah.
they are coming from and why they do what they do.
Yeah, even previously, like training arcs normally represented big character benchmarks for the most part. Like I think the one that does this the weakest is probably license exam, but even that is like that's just a logical next step for getting the students to actually be on the front lines with how things have been set up. Um, Joint training. Look, despite the name, I'm going to be honest, it's technically not even a real training arc. It's like it's straight up a tournament. So for anybody who wanted another tournament after sports festival, that's effectively what joint training is. It's a team.
Yeah, from what I, because like again, my One Piece knowledge isn't all that massive, but like it's like My Hero's version of Skypiea. It's like a super important lore arc that people just seem to try to dismiss.
Yeah. Um, and even like Endeavor Agency, look, you have the kids like working to stop a villain before Endeavor and also Deku learning to use Black Whip. You have that in the background. The main point of that arc is to further push the Todoroki subplot and to set up the reveal with Dabi that comes at the end of the war. So they're already doing those kind of double pronged things. It's like just because it's not necessarily straight fighting doesn't mean that they're not doing both. Because I'm gonna be honest, like I think I remember it just sprung to mind, but I haven't seen it in a while, so maybe I'm not judging it fairly, but Greed Island from Hunter x Hunter, I think, was kind of an example of that.
Oh yeah, that was a training arc essentially because they Gon and Killua met Bisky, and like she was showing them like give them the tools that they needed to improve, especially for Chimera Ant.
Mhm. And like she pops up again throughout the series and
Yeah.
in the current arc for sure, but a lot of that arc is kind of like more so focused on like the actual game elements, and
When I got to, I was
there
so
is
scared when I got
explicitly
to
yeah, there is explicitly gone training, but like there's a reason it is kind of seen as one of the lesser arcs in the series outside of the initial arc.
Yeah, I get no, I was like really scared of like having to memorize all of the cards that they had. It turned out that like that wasn't really a big part of it because like in my head I sometimes have trouble keeping everyone's Nen ability straight and then trying to remember what cards did what, but luckily the cards they weren't really as big a part of it from a story perspective as I was afraid they were going to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I got some things to take care of.
Yeah,
So
we've been going for 2 hours too, so this is a
yeah,
yeah,
I'm
good
just gonna
juncture to
go
start
very
the wrap up.
quickly. I'm just gonna go very quickly and take off. Excellent chapter. It's such a cliffhanger. Like we knew the question of like, is Decker going to keep One for All or not coming? And it's really dealing with that here, and it's tying it directly into the resolution with Shigaraki. So this is very blatantly Deku's whole character coming full circle here. This is it. We've got a couple other subplots in the background, and we're going to see them, but by and large, I think the fact that we don't have a POV switch, it really is establishing, no, we are all in on this fight now. And it's really such a brilliant culmination for Deku's character. It's like what drives him is that ability to believe that it's not really he believes that there's good in everybody. He believes that everybody is fundamentally the same deep down. Like I mean, Chaco's speech during Dark Hero is like, "There's no such thing as a special person." That's true because we are all equally valuable on the inside. And so he innately believes that. He doesn't necessarily know if Tenko is good or not. And I think the story is leaning towards that it's a point of note that Shigaraki has gone too far, I think, but does that mean he's beyond saving? It seems to, Deku doesn't believe that. He believes there's a way. But there's also the whole thing with Gran Torino talking about, killing can be a form of saving. So as Seth was talking last stream about synthesis, there's going to be some form of synthesis and catharsis at the end of this. However, New Order Star factors in what the Vestiges are going to be doing, what Kudo's plan is, we're going to see that, and I'm just going to let the story play out. I trust Horikoshi. I trust him with his power-ups. I know people are freaking out about, maybe taking Deku taking a leap in power that like they might not like. He handles this stuff very well. So I have long since come to trust him, and especially since we're so close to the ending of this series, um, just just let him rip. Just let him do his thing. Thank you guys for having me on. Joy as always talking this stuff with you, and I'll talk to you next time. All right, bye.
See you. Bye. Squid, final thoughts?
It was a good chapter. My goat Shiggy is back, and he's adamant. He hasn't changed. Bro is liberated, and uh, uh you know, I like seeing that. And yeah, I'm interested where this is gonna go. I'm wondering how far he's gonna stretch this plot element of more powers parting from One for All. I'm wondering if it. And part of me is kind of wondering, will we eventually reach the stage where he's functionally quirkless again? I think that's something that isn't likely, but I think it can remain a possibility. So that's gonna be pretty interesting to see. Art as always was good. And yeah, it's like a 7 out of 10 for me. It's a good chapter.
All right. And Joseph.
All right. Yeah, I absolutely love this chapter. Just like the art was amazing. Like one thing that I really always enjoyed about, I think, okay, let me start over. The thing that really appeals to me most about the series is how much I just care about the characters. And this is very much a character-driven conflict. And the fact that he's still, I mean, Izuku's still not given up on trying to find like the root cause for Shigaraki is, I just find that so endearing. Even when everyone is telling him not to, he's sticking to his convictions, and really excited to see what the pointing could lead to. I mentioned earlier, but like that theory, which I mostly like for the name because I like, but I like the idea of One for All becoming something else, like sort of fit in with like how it began. Uh, just really looking forward to the next one. I had something else, but I just lost it. So, um, yeah, no, good chapter. Can't wait for more. Uh, that's all I got, really.
All right. Well, thank everybody that came through, from the people in the chats, the people in the stream. I'm gonna go ahead and hop off here because I got some stuff to take care of. I appreciate everybody. This chapter this week was actually really good as far as I'm concerned. I've been enjoying this last stretch of the series immensely. Look forward to seeing you all again.